What's happening? It is Thursday morning, depending on where you're at. It just turned 12:01 p.m. for me, but Ron, it's a completely different time for you. The sun is not even up yet. It is 4 in the morning or something where you're at.
It's a Friday morning. It just turned 5 in the morning. Sunrise is at 7. And by the way,
Where?
good morning. Good
Good
morning.
morning. Cheers. Cheers to you, fine sir. Happy Thursday. Happy Friday Eve. If you're joining us live, thanks for joining us. We've got some fun topics to cover today, some great topics, and we're going to get into them in just a second. But Ron, where are you at in the world right now?
I am pulling into port in Auckland, New Zealand.
Auckland, New Zealand. I think you've told me you've been there one time before, correct?
I've not been to New Zealand, but I can tell you. Have you been to New Zealand, David?
Never. It's on my bucket list.
These are your people. These are your people.
Why do you
They're
say
very
that?
similar to probably. I'm guessing more than a few of them wear skirts occasionally.
It's funny you say that because on Sunday, I've got a bunch of family coming in town, my siblings, my son, a bunch of people, and we're going to the Renaissance Festival on Sunday. And I just bought a brand new kilt, and we are all dressing up in our entire Renaissance garb. It's going to be fun.
No, they remind me of you. I mean, they're very nice, very stylish. The town yesterday was Taranga, beautifully clean, modern, really good architecture, really friendly people, polite, well educated, modern, probably better technology on average than say normal U.S. city. It was right up your alley. It was like this is David's town.
Yeah. Well, two things conflict there for me. You said polite and well educated. I don't think those things go for me.
You're both of those. Uh, so yeah, so there you go.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into the topics that we're covering. The first one is I haven't done a from the gut from Dave in the last couple weeks or so, but this one we've got an interesting topic coming out from Lay's and a kind of I don't know if it's a rebrand, but they've got a whole new marketing angle that they're bringing out right now. That I'm going to tie that into branding, and then Ron, we're going to go here next.
Yeah, this is going to be a big topic. My guess is we'll spend quite a bit of time on this, and this is on phantom mortgages, and that is seconds that homeowners think have been forgiven that are not forgiven, and now they're losing their houses to have to pay them back.
I like it. And then here.
Uh, this little teeny screen here is about how ChatGPT is rolling out a new platform, their SDK platform, which allows other companies to go native inside of ChatGPT. And one of the first handful of companies to do that is Zillow. And it could be a game changer. And it's really controversial inside the industry.
And then lastly, before we get to our rapid fire topics.
It's fascinating. It just speaks to how, millennials and the new generations are getting prenups. And we're going to talk about the role that plays as an advisor, a
Yep.
mortgage or real estate advisor.
Gotcha. All right. So let's jump into the first one, the from the gut, where I'm
Hey,
gonna.
David, before you jump in, I'm not interrupting you. I'm sorry. Before you jump to that, we apologize. We missed our first week last week for our podcast. We had many technical difficulties that I was in the middle of the ocean and the satellite Starlink wasn't giving us a big enough signal, so we missed it. So we're sorry. We had a ton of great topics lined up. And then next week might be a little bit in jeopardy too, but we'll see if we can't work it out. It may not be live, it might be taped, but we'll see what we can do.
Yeah. I'm gonna go off gallivanting the world next week, and Ron, you'll be home.
I will be thankfully home.
Well, I wouldn't say I'll be gallivanting the world, but I'll be in Tennessee. So gonna go there for two different things, which I'm really excited about.
I'm looking forward to From the Gut because I have plenty of that product in my gut typically. So I can't wait to hear it.
All right. Well, let's get right to it. All right, it's not playing. We've got a video bumper, but uh, we'll get to it anyway. So let me talk about this. Will just take a few minutes, but I'm going to talk about Lay's potato chips for just a few minutes because Apparently, this is just wild. A shocking number of Americans had no idea that Lay's are made from actual potatoes. According to Pepsi, their own internal research, 42% of people didn't know that fact, that they're made from potato chips. So now, after nearly 100 years of these bright yellow bags and chip commercials, now after nearly 100 years, they're going through a visual overhaul. They're giving the bags a new matte look, and the phrase made, they're focusing on the phrase made with real potatoes. Who in the world doesn't know that? It's going to be stamped front and center, and even swapping out their oils to sound a little healthier. So why are they doing this? They're fighting a perception problem. Even though the product hasn't changed, the understanding of it has. And here's why that matters in your world, my world. Clarity beats creativity every single time. Lay's has always been a fun, familiar brand, an everyday brand, but somewhere along the line, their identity got lost in the noise. It was all about flashy packaging or influencer campaigns, wild, crazy flavors until people really got to a point where they forgot what they were eating. Lay's lost their through line and their anchor, and now they're having to go back to the beginning to re-explain what they are. Crazy, I know. Now, you're more than likely not in the snack food business. So how does this affect you? If people can be confused about something as basic as potato chips, then you better believe that they can be confused about what you do. A lot of everyday people don't know what a loan officer does. Maybe you tell them that you help them get into a home. It's all about branding. And here's the uncomfortable truth: confused people don't convert. They don't refer, they don't trust, and they'll scroll past in a second. I see this happen with personal brands all the time. They get caught up in the cleverness, trendy language, abstract slogans, cool aesthetics, and so on. But somewhere in there, they forgot to actually say what they do. Or worse, they try to say everything to everyone. And the result is quite often brand soup, no clarity, no connection. The solution isn't always more. Think think quality over quantity. You all know that video is king when it comes to social media, but don't post a video every single day if what you're saying is garbage or no one cares about it. Sometimes just think better storytelling and better quality again over quantity. I know a lot of people they think algorithm, and I need to post 3 shorts per day, one carousel, one whatever. But if what you're posting is not quality, it's going to get lost in translation or just lost in the noise. If your Instagram bio, your profile photo, your pin posts, and your top videos, if all of that doesn't make it painfully obvious who you are and what you do and why you're different, then chances are you're blending in with the noise. You don't want people squinting at your brand like saying, wait, so what exactly do you do again? Because again, a lot of people don't even know what a loan officer is. We want people nodding within 3 seconds, saying, oh, I get it, and thinking, that's for me. I need that. So maybe the takeaway from Lay's isn't just about packaging, it's about perception. And you don't have to wait until half of your audience is confused to fix that. You can start by asking yourself, what's the one thing that I want people to know for me, about me? Where might they be getting mixed signals, and how can I make my message more clear without watering it down? Because in a world full of seasoned fluff and artificial flash, sometimes it pays to be the one who just says, I'm made with real potatoes. Ron, any thoughts?
No, well, maybe one, but that was perfect, David. The only thing I would add is if 42% of the consumers that buy Lay's potato chips don't know it comes from potatoes, to your point, how confused can people be about what we do? And I would just, encourage people is ask those around them Ask them, hey, do you know what I do? Can you explain to me what I do? And if they give you mealy mouth, weird stuff, then you know your message is unclear. Like I can tell you, when I was a loan officer, my mom could not tell you what I did. She probably still couldn't tell you what I did. My brand, my message was too garbled, too complicated. So just ask the people, start with people closest to you. Explain to me, can you do me a favor? Explain to me what I do, and then that'll be a barometer of how well your message is.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Donald Miller, uh, uh, brand story. Shoot, what's the name of the book? I just said I'm a big fan, but it's been probably 10 years since I've read the book. But he has a test when, especially when talking about clarity on your website. He says that it should be able to pass the caveman test. That if a caveman can't figure out what you do within 5 seconds, 3 seconds of landing on your website, then your website is broken. It needs to be fixed. So I think about it in those terms.
Yeah, perfect. And you were right. It's a Brad Miller brand story.
Brand story. Okay, got it right. Donald Miller.
Yeah, that's what I said. Good point. Donald, David Miller, billionaire story brand. There you go.
Yeah, there we
Good
go.
job. Good pull.
All right, you want to get to our first topic?
Yeah, David, I would, we can almost probably do an hour on this topic. We won't, but it's such a fascinating topic. And just, and we're gonna, we're gonna probably try
That's not the
to,
right one.
um, I know that, but I'm still gonna keep, well, nope, not that one. We're getting closer though.
We're getting close.
Um,
There we go.
There we go. Good. So here's the thing. It's very easy to see one side of the story where there's two sides, even though we don't want to believe it. And here's really what happened. Back leading up to the Great Recession back in 2005, 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007, the industry as a whole, we were doing a ton of 100% financing, 80% first, 20% seconds, lots of other seconds leading up to the Great Recession. People were really maxing their loan to values. And then when we had the Great Recession and property values fell as much as 50%, let's say you bought a house for 400,000, $300,000 first, $100,000 second, and now your house falls to 250,000. You may have maybe lost your job. You can't afford to make payments anymore. You kept making payments on the first because you wanted to get your house foreclosed, knowing that the second couldn't foreclose on your house. And the reason why they can't, if you're in second position, the example I just gave, where there's $400,000 of financing, the house is only worth 250. If I have a $100,000 second, if I foreclose, I got to make the person in first whole. So I'd have to pay them 300,000 to foreclose the house, which I wouldn't do because I'd already lose money. And so what happened? Lenders were forced to write these loans off. And if you go back to that picture that we just showed, when they would write a loan off, they would send a consumer a 1099-C, which notified them that the original lender had canceled the debt. And this now became a tax obligation to the homeowner because that was forgiven, principal that was taxable. And so they'd have to put on their taxes. The other thing that lender would do, they quit sending them the homeowner a monthly statement. And so they cease getting a monthly statement. They receive this 1099, I think it's actually a 1099-C, but they received this 1099, it says K, but I think it was a C. But anyway, nevertheless, they received this 1099-C. And then the other thing is they quit reporting on their credit report. And so they go, gosh, that's great. That second was wiped off. I no longer owe that $100,000 in the example that I gave. But the truth is, the lien was never removed. The obligation was never removed. Just because the primary originator wrote it off doesn't mean that there's still not an obligation. And so what these companies did, let's say it was any of these large companies, but what they did is they wrote off their debt and then they sold it off as bad debt. So they might send a $10 million batch of these seconds. They might sell it for $500,000 or $1 million to a company, and the company would go, I bet at some point we're going to be able to collect on this. Now, flash forward 15 years, and that $400,000 house that went down to 250 in 2008, 2009 is now worth $1 million. And the people that bought that second say, ha ha ha, you now have equity. You owe me that you owe me that money. You owe me that $100,000 second that you obligated for, 20 years ago or 15 years ago. And not only that, I'm going to charge you interest and penalties. So what you really owe me is 200,000, and you have 45 days to pay it to me, or I'm going to foreclose your house. So that's the situation, right? Now, if you're like me, I think the people that buy those seconds are pawn scums. I really think that they take advantage of homeowners. I think they behave illegally in a whole bunch of ways, including it's illegal to charge interest if you're not actually servicing the loan. Meaning, if you haven't notified the homeowner that you're charging them interest, you're not sending them a monthly statement, then you can't charge them the interest, and so that part's illegal. There's all sorts of parts in the collection that are fully illegal. But what these companies do, which are mostly law companies, and these legal law companies hire debt collectors. What they do, they just know they can scare the consumer into paying it because they don't lose their houses. So in that part, I mean, that's why the one side that we can all agree on, I think. But the other side is the homeowner actually obligated to that debt, right? And now they benefited from all this appreciation. And there's an argument that they may still be responsible for that debt. And so, David, that's just the basic, laying out the groundwork. I mean, when you hear that, what do you think?
I'm curious about real world numbers and how many people are affected by that.
Yeah, in the article, which was an exhaustive Bloomberg report, says there's about 600,000 homes at risk of these zombie mortgages coming back to foreclosure or having to pay it. So it's not insignificant. About 1% of the outstanding, housing, financed housing.
And are a lot of them what I'd assume that a lot of them are the result from the 08, 09, the recession.
Yeah, absolutely, because the conditions and the conditions that have to happen is you have to have financing to a high LTV, and then you have to have prices drop, right? That has to be the conditions that lead to people, defaulting on their second. Those conditions haven't really been present, although some would argue most recently, if you bought a house in 2002, in many markets that house is worth less now, and if you really flexed your CLTV to 95, you might be upside down, and you may opt to quit, performing on your second. But it's all from that almost all vintage 2004 through 2008. Yes.
What's a solution for those people that don't have cash in the bank to pay that off? Is a cash out refinance an option, or how do they go about that?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. And this is where we want to advocate that if you're watching this and you're a mortgage or real estate professional, we have to be really good advisors and even proactive. Like we should be putting this into our annual mortgage fitness checkups, going, hey, at any point did you have a second that you think that was forgiven or canceled? And then walk through what they may or may not be facing to help them. Now, the first thing is what they could have done when these people back when these debts were canceled, they could have done a limited BK and scraped off the second and not been obligated, and nobody would have fought it because back then it would have been losing money. If you had bought that debt, why would you spend money to go to court to fight them when you know you're upside down, you can't collect anyway? And so they should have just scrubbed it through a BK, and there's a specific BK that you can scrub the second on. But it's assuming that they didn't do that, or they could have asked for a lien release. That's another thing. When the bank sent you that cancellation of debt, you could ask title for a lien release at the time. But that's what you could have done proactively. Now, reactively, the first thing is you can't ignore it. If you get a letter or a call, a lot of times you don't get a call. You might even get a notice, that your house is going to a foreclosure sale. Whatever, as soon as you hear something, you have to get a hold of an attorney, because more than likely the attorney can stop it, because more than likely there's a lot of illegal practices happening inside of that. So first thing, get an attorney. You can also, Dave, there's government agencies there to help protect you, both state and federal. So you can contact government agencies for their protection. But you have to do something. But I would definitely start with an attorney, even if it's a government sponsored attorney, a paid for attorney. And in the end, if they say, hey, look, one thing is, I guarantee you they're going to get the penalties and the interest removed. So, I mean, that's like your debt is doubled, right? You're going to get that removed. Let's say that in the end, there's nothing you can do. You owe the obligation. Yeah, you can certainly do another second, or you can do a cash out refinance because you have the equity now. So you could you could withhold the burden, right? You have the ability. When your house is upside down, you didn't have any options, but you have options now. They might be uncomfortable because they're going to eat into your quality of life, but that's better than maybe losing $500,000 of equity. And so you definitely would want to take care of it, but do not hide from it. That's the key thing. Do not think that it's bogus or it's going to go away. Do not do that.
We had a couple images that we had queued up, I think. Did you want to pull those up and talk through those at all, Ron? The
We can just really quickly
1099.
the thing. Yeah, the 1099-C. If we have that image, it just shows you what your client might have received back when the debt was canceled. This is what it looks like. This has been highly redacted because it's personal information, but you can see that the consumer actually received this and thought that it was forgiven. Like that. That's why they honestly believed it, not knowing just because the primary debt holder canceled the debt on their books, the obligation wasn't removed. And then the next one was the other part that you look at is, do they stop getting monthly statements? Like in this case, this is actually from a case. These people lost their home, and they thought that the debt was canceled. They no longer received statements. It wasn't reported on their credit report. But in the end, they end up losing their home. All that stuff didn't matter. And if they would have consulted an attorney, the attorney 100% could have stopped this. And in the report, it showed like the 5 ways the attorney would have stopped it. And that's why you just can't ignore it. That's the key thing. But understand why people are so confused and why it's controversial. Because, like I said, I think the people that do this are probably the lowest among us, the people that buy this debt and then, take advantage of it. But then again, the homeowners paid the obligation, and now they've had the benefit of the appreciation. So there's two sides to the story, but definitely seek protection.
Yeah. Let's move on to ChatGPT. Why don't we?
All right, ChatGPT.
ChatGPT and Zillow.
Yeah, so this is really interesting, David, and it's even getting more interesting. ChatGPT has created a new platform, their SDK platform, which allows companies to go native inside of ChatGPT. And I'll use the example because it was announced yesterday. Walmart is now joining the SDK platform. So in the fall, you'll be able to be on ChatGPT and go, "Hey, ChatGPT, can I get a bar of soap, of say Dove soap?" And it'll go, "Would you like to get it from Walmart?" And you can order it straight from ChatGPT. You don't have to leave that environment. It's in the AI conversational environment. You can go, "ChatGPT, what's the best shampoo to buy? Does Walmart have it? Order it for me." It gives a huge advantage to Walmart. So, but in the initial 5 or 6 that they're starting, actually, Zillow was one of the brands, and it's actually one of the brands they really feature. They feature, "Hey, now you can do everything you need in real estate through ChatGPT using the Zillow SDK connection," which means essentially, there's a portal where it directly, links to Zillow, which is really, really interesting. So I was this morning or yesterday, I saw a bunch of articles in Inman where Zillow's competitors, which are all real estate companies, suggest that this is illegal behavior by Zillow because Zillow has to license access to the MLSs using an IDX feed, and in that there's all sorts of rules that they can't just post that information somewhere else, and they have to be able to control that information. But by opening this, pipeline directly to ChatGPT, they no longer control what's happening to the information on the MLSs, and they can't do that not only by law but also by contract. And so it's going to get really messy. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens.
What do you hope the end result is?
Well, I hope for innovation. I mean, anything that makes it easier for a home buyer to find a home, I think, is helpful. It just means it's changing everything, and so we have to change, level up, get better all the time. How do I now get ahead of the if I'm a real estate agent, how do I understand what's happening with this SDK feed, and how do I use it to my advantage, not my disadvantage? And how do I, not act like an erudite and pretend we're not going to have new technology? How do I embrace it, get in front of it, make it my technology so I'm now the value, not Zillow or ChatGPT?
How long do you see the gosh, I took a brief stint outside of mortgage and went into the real estate world and learned the complexities of IDX feeds and just the laws and all that kind of stuff.
Dude, it
How
looks like our connection is.
Yeah, you're back. How How long do you see this legal
Yeah,
battle
good.
drawing out for?
It's really interesting. It's been a battle. It's a battle to begin with. Who owns the listing information? That's the whole thing that Compass is saying, fighting Zillow. Look, it's our listings. It's our property. It's not your property, and so you can't just do whatever you want with our property, which is that listing. And then, by the way, charge us back to get the related leads from our own listings. And you can't. This was our argument with NAR and MLS is. Like an agent, you can't put your picture, your brand on the listing, the MLS. And they're like, but it's my property. It's like they're stealing their property from them, right? Well, now Zillow's going an extra step and going, not only am I stealing your property, but I'm going to give access free to the whole world, which you're not going to benefit from, outside of what the rules are. And I think it's a really strong case that it may be a problem, but and NAR's going to have a hard time figuring this out because you can't hide from technology, right? Especially because, as you know, ChatGPT, any of these generative AI tools, they can go find the information. It's public information. It's not so. I can go research something on Google and I can share that information. It's public domain, right? And so NAR's going to have to figure out how to still own the proprietary listings, and yet still use technology. So it's very interesting.
I
What
it's
do you think, Dave? You like
I
all these companies getting?
I think NAR won't exist in 3 years, 4 years.
Yeah, I know you. I was on a podcast a couple years ago. I said I don't think NAR's going to make it. They're certainly not going to make it in the form they have, but I really don't think they're going to make it, and I don't
Yeah,
think they think they're going to make it either anymore.
really.
Yeah, they came out last week. They came out. They're coming out with a new vision plan, like their 3-year plan, and the early tenets of that plan are all no value to their consumer. Like their number one thing is transparency. Well, transparency isn't value. Like our number one value for the future vision is transparency. Well, how
Right.
does that help me? I mean, what you're saying, you're not going to hurt me anymore. Like, but why do you exist? Why am I paying you fees? What value do you add to me or my consumer? And I think they're having a really hard time figuring that out.
Yeah, they
When they
they
control the MLS,
you go back to Lay's potato chips. They have an identity crisis on their hands, right?
yeah. Well, the thing, historically, what did they did? Here's what they did. They created the MLS, which actually democratized, home buying because it let us all share information, which is great. It used to be serfdoms before that, so that's great. They advocated, they lobbied hardcore for their agents. They were the largest lobby in the United States for the longest time, right? And then they created professional standards so that they wouldn't be regulated by the government. It's like lawyers, they police themselves, right? Doctors for the most part police themselves, and that prevents all sorts of regulations and all sorts of interference with the government. So those are the three functions they did. Well, today those functions, they don't really do them today. There's other places they get the data from. You don't have to go to MLS. You don't. They no longer are lobby worth a bean. I don't know if they've successfully lobbied for anything recently. And third, their professional standards. They don't control them. There's like what we learned. They have no standards. That's their professional standard is zero. The bar to entry is low. They don't police it. That's why the opinion about realtors are so low. Even like when we saw this change with going to no commingled commissions and how buyer's agent were going to have to earn their commissions and real estate agents. That's great because this was real estate agent, hate on real estate agents. There's so many bad real estate agents. Hopefully this will drive all those bad real estate agents out. Well, what the hell was NAR supposed to be doing? I mean, if you're setting the professional standards and, your own membership thinks it's too low, well, what the heck are you doing? And so I just think they're completely obsolete and don't have
Yeah.
a purpose, even though they have really good leadership today, by the way.
Do you know any of the people in leadership there?
Yeah, yeah. I have met. Was it Kevin Smith? I met the president. I met the CEO lady. She was super nice. I met her at a conference. Super bright. But you know what? They're on a sinking ship. I don't know if the pail water they're trying to bail out is going to help them. Honestly, I mean, they
Yeah.
need a complete restart.
And what percent of real estate agents are realtors?
It used to be 90%, but that number is dropping. I don't know what it is currently, but it
Yeah.
was plus 90%.
Right.
It used to mean something to get that R realtor, trademark.
Right. Right. All right. You want to talk about prenups?
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. It's interesting, David. You and I were talking about this. Average loan officers, real estate agents, we're all in our, 55 to 60 is the average age. I think it's 57 or 58 right now. And the generation we grew up in did not believe in prenups. And like, I'm sure, David, even you think like prenup was just forecasting doom, on something that was supposed to be for eternity. But the newer generations don't think that way. They think, millennials, half of them get a prenup. It's just they go. It's no different than signing a purchase contract for a house. And one of the quotes in the article, and it was a lengthy article in the Free Press. One of the quotes was from an attorney. Either you can design your own prenup, or you can let the government design it for you. But one way or the other, you have one, right? Like one way or another, there's rules around if it doesn't work, what's going to happen. And so, the young generation today, they just see that as just a necessary step, and so they want it. They want to know the outcome of what happens if this doesn't work. And then the second part, which is the more interesting part, is parents today are mandating that their kids get prenups. And the reason why is we talked about, in the article said, there's $80 trillion of wealth that's going to transfer in the next decade or so. And we know that number is closer to $105 trillion that's going to transfer in the next 20 years. And if I'm a wealthy parent and my son or daughter is considering getting married, and I know I'm about to transfer them my wealth, let's say I'm going to transfer them $5 million. Do I want that to be half to my son and half to my daughter-in-law? No, I don't. I don't work my whole life so if my son gets divorced after 6 months of marriage, that his ex-wife now has half my wealth, right? And so I'm going, son, if you want to inherit my money, you better have a prenup that protects your inheritance, from me. And so that's a big part of driving it also. And it's just interesting how the world's changing, but it no longer has a stigma, Dave. Today, if you get a prenup, you're considered wise versus you're, projecting doom. Isn't that interesting? And like, I'd be interested to see what McKenna's thoughts on this are.
Yeah. We'd love to. It, interesting because she is dating a fella, and it got me thinking about that. But here's what I'm curious about is that our generation, like I always thought that a prenup was something that happens when one person is super wealthy and the other person is not when they go into a marriage. I think that's the stereotype, at least of our generation. But it's our generation that, like you said, is getting ready to pass down the 105 trillion that are requiring or pushing their kids to sign the prenup. But our generation, I think the stereotypical position on prenups is only if it's only discussed if one person has a $10 million net worth and the other one is in debt, but it's the same
Yeah.
people that are encouraging their kids to. So that's weird for me.
Yeah, and the big factor is kids are getting married, 10 years later than say their parents did, or even 20 years later, and so they have more material goods, they have more assets that they have to pay attention to, they have more debt, and so that plays a bigger role. If you're like my parents, my mom and dad got married when my dad was 21 and my mom was 18. They didn't have jack. I mean, like, like this doesn't work out. Okay, you get the bicycle. You know, it's like who cares? But today, if you're getting married and you're 40, you might actually have considerable retirement assets. You might already have a house. Or you might have a lot of debt. Either way, right? And in the prenups, things that they cover up to including who gets the dog. You know, which is no small thing in divorces. Like who gets the dog, who gets the house, who gets what. So I guess it makes sense. It just seems unromantic, but
Maybe,
maybe that's just the world today.
we're just wearing our boomer hats right now. I agree, it's a good word, unromantic. But I don't know. I don't know if I were to go back 26 years and got married today, or whatever. If I were to get married today, I would maybe have a different opinion on it. I don't know. Maybe that's just the age that I am, or maybe that's just the world we live in now. I don't know. It seems very transactional.
Yeah, yeah. Well, marriage is more transactional today, so there you go. But you know what, David? Let's turn this towards what we do. The key thing is, I think if you're in lending, you take the primary role of that person's financial, plan or path, right? Because the what we get to do is we're the only people probably in those people's world that see everything, right? When somebody comes to get a home loan, I get to see your credit. I get to see how you spend every penny of your money. I get to see your bank accounts. I get to see your retirement. I get to see everything. I mean, I know everything about you that probably no one else in your life sees that whole financial picture. And as such, if I'm going to be a really good servant to my clients, I'm going to serve the whole thing. And so if I see them and I'm going to go, hey, gosh, you guys really should think about life insurance. You both work, you have kids, you have lots of assets. What if one of you die? You need to consider life insurance, or you need an estate plan, or you need a better accountant. You need a better CPA, or you need better, tax strategies. I need to be wise enough or educated enough as a professional serving them to be able to serve the whole person and give them this advice. The reason why we bring this up today is part of that now is prenup. Who would even thought prenups are part of that? Like, do you have a prenup? Would you consider a prenup, especially if they're not married yet? What kind of assets do your parents have? Do your parents plan on transferring those assets to you? How do you plan to protect that? Are you going to do that in the form of trust? Are you going to use real estate to help transfer that? We just need to be stay ahead of all these trends so that we can be a good advisor, or at least understand when our clients come and talk to us, right? Because what happens, you get married, have a baby, and buy a house all about the same time,
Yeah, I
right?
really
They're,
wish.
they're, they're,
I really
yeah.
wish that we had this set up for McKenna to join us. So that's just encouraged me to make that happen for next week or the week after, because it'd be great to have a she's 23 to have a younger person's perspective on this.
It would be great. Yeah, that's where we got to try not to be old men. But it's the thing, so we got to know about it, right?
Yep.
That's the way it is. Just like you, if you're in real estate or mortgage, you better know about how to help assist the older generation transfer wealth through real estate. You need to know everything you can, because that should be an absolute bedrock part of your business. And this is just another flavor of that.
Yeah. Let's move on to the first of, I think, four rapid fire topics. We'll spend about 3 minutes on each of these. And the first one is all about AI, and I think consumers using it for housing research.
Yeah, we should have married this topic with our ChatGPT, but the ChatGPT thing came out and Zillow came out later.
Hmm.
But this speaks to, and I don't know if we have any of the graphs or not, David. Um, yeah, so this is the first thing you got to take away. So this is trusted sources of information, where a potential home buyer goes for to trusted source information. And AI is coming right up on real estate agents, where people trust going to AI 62%, where they trust going to real estate agents 65%. So it's very soon AI is going to be the most trusted source of information for home buyers. Now, we know what that begs the question. Do you know what AI is telling your clients? This is super important to understand. There's two things. Do you know if your clients are using AI? And second, do you know what AI is telling your clients? And so I heard this wonderful script. I think it was about 6 or 8 months ago on a podcast with Dave Savage. And the person he was interviewing says, look, we do a up to now kind of test with our clients. We go, up to now, where have you gotten information about buying a home? What sources have you used? And the reason why they're doing that is because then they're going to know where they're at in the buying process, right? Have you talked to a real estate agent? Did you research online? Did you use social media? They're going to know immediately where they're at. And then they say in their script, well, I want to know where you get your sources of information, what you know, so I can meet you where you're at and most productively help you, right? And then the second thing is it also lets you know how open or capable they are about using these different technologies. If they said, "Hey, I've been researching on AI quite a bit," that's a green light. Then, if you're a lender and you have an AI enabled platform, right? because you know those clients are going to be comfortable in those environments. But if they go, no, I've never been on AI, well, it gives you a heads up. Hey, I better hold their hand through all our technology processes because they're technology adverse. It's really, really good. So this right here is a wonderful signal and something really, really to pay attention to.
I'm curious about
And as you
the.
can see, 61.
Sorry, Ron.
Oh, please go ahead. No, please.
I'm curious about the 55.1% of television. What does that mean?
Yeah, there's 55.1% of television, is the all these new, not only infomercials but HGTV, all that kind of stuff, is what it's talking to. That whole buying, flipping homes, buying homes, like the, millionaire agent or whatever. I don't watch those shows, but those have a lot of influence. The next thing though is the social media, which is fascinating. Where it says 52% of people, think social media is a trusted source of information, but it's something like 70% of home buyers go onto social media. I think we probably have a slide breaking down where they go. I'm
I don't think
guessing.
we do, Ron. I'm surprised social media isn't
That
higher.
Well, you know what it is. What's amazing, and I'm scrolling down to those slides on my screen so I can not just make stats up, which I'd like to do. But here it is. So it was. So here's the deal. Social media. 73% of people go on YouTube. Which makes sense because people post now virtual home tours on YouTube, and then 57% go on Facebook. For Gen Z, 76% of them go on TikTok, and TikTok is their number one go-to for housing content.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if you're a boomer, or even older, are you showing up on TikTok? Because are you meeting your clients where they're at? Are you meeting them on YouTube? Are you meeting them on Facebook? Are you meeting them on TikTok? Right? Do you understand what AI, when a borrower says it's now a good time to buy, goes to ChatGPT, hey, I'm thinking about buying a home, it's now a good time to buy. Do you know what ChatGPT is telling them? When they go on to ChatGPT and go, hey, is this a good interest rate? Right? Or are you the Sherpa helping them? Right? That's if you listen to Dave Savage, and they have next Mortgage Coach Next Gen, which is an AI based platform, which is wonderful because what it does is it takes like a ChatGPT experience and then actually links it to the borrower's specific circumstances through Mortgage Coach. And so when the home buyer goes, hey, Mortgage Coach AI, should I buy a home? It can go based on everything I know about you, which is everything. Here's a curated answer, right? And then people on that platform, whether it's you're using Mortgage Coach Next Gen or you're encouraging your borrowers to use Gemini or Chat, whoever it is, it doesn't matter. You give them a list of questions to ask the AI tool. Like that's the way to get ahead of it. That's the way to make that tech be. That's what we were talking about before. Can you either you can own the technology can own you, all right? Like so, okay, my borrowers are using ChatGPT. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna give them a list of prompts to ask the AI tool to help them in their journey. And then I'm going to tell them, hey, I'm right there with you to help interpret the answers for you, right? In case you don't understand it or to correct it if it hallucinates. Now I'm the one using the technology on behalf of my clients and I become more valuable. Now I will say, going back to the Mortgage Coach Next Gen, what happens is the conversations that your clients have with the Mortgage Coach AI tool, you actually get informed of every question they ask it so that you can follow up independently. So you know exactly what you're thinking. It's like you get a spy on them when they're having these conversations. And as we know, David, when a consumer gets some sort of validation through an AI tool, they're 6 times more likely to convert or to transact. And so the interesting thing here and the encouragement is figure out how to use this, not how for it to use you. Like, don't let it push you out of the picture. Instead, be large and in charge in front of it, right? And that's another thing. I love this. I heard this. I think I heard this on Scriptapalooza. Somebody said, you know what? I do videos on how ChatGPT gave wrong answers on real estate. So they ask it a question and give a totally bogus answer, right? And it wouldn't say, hey, don't use this. It's horrible. Just go, hey, it gives you bad answers sometimes. That's why you need a professional like me to make sure you're being guided correctly, to help you interpret it, to help also you get through the emotional part of it. I love that. I love being like, hey, it can't put on the juice on top of it that I'm. That's why you still need me to tell you it's right.
Yep.
Uh, yeah. There you go. I went on a mini rant, I guess.
We'll call that Ron's rant. Let's move to the second rapid fire since we went double the length
Well, what,
on
David,
that one.
what was your opinion about that? What do you, let's go on that, people using AI tools, and now they find them almost more valuable than real estate agents are using social media. What's your thought? Good thing, bad thing? How does our audience leverage that?
Uh, d- I I think it's this year before the AI takes over the role of, at least on the education piece. I think it's any day now where that number is going to be above real estate agents. I'm just surprised it's already not higher, because it's it's inevitable for me, and I think it's a good thing. But that, I don't think that's a necessarily a should be a discouragement to real estate agents. It just means they need to know how to leverage it better and how to be prominent. And it's the new SEO. So how do you get the to be not the on the first page of Google anymore, which is 5 years ago strategy or even 2 years ago strategy? It's how do I show up on ChatGPT, on AI. So it's just it's a good thing, but it's a new challenge for real estate agents where they've for years now been focused so much on SEO and social media. It's just now a new challenge.
Yeah, and there's another good point here, David. These AI tools are taking over a lot of the work that we would traditionally do. The question is, what do you do with the time savings to multiply your value? Right? And so if I no longer have to run down every little bit of information for my consumers, and so that saves me 10% of my, weekly hours working. Do I reclaim those 10% and reinvest into something more important, making me more valuable? Or do I just go, oh, I work less, I do less, right? Because if you do the latter of those things versus the former, you're just going to be out of business before you know it. But if you reclaim that time and, recommit it to something more valuable, then you'll be in business forever. And that's the difference, I think, how people, especially in the real estate, business, a lot of times, real estate agents are letting AI tools automate their labor, but they're not reinvesting into something valuable, and so they're just being completely negated, from the business.
Yep, agreed. Let's talk about screen time and parents.
This is crazy. You might even want to take the lead on this or not. And I think the title of the article, it was about how many 2 year olds. What caught my attention is how many 2 year olds use AI. It's a crazy amount. It's like 40% of 2 year olds use AI. Like I don't even know how. And then it said what percentage of kids use these type of things that you show here, and this was for kids 12 year olds or younger, and of course 90% watch TV, and 68% use a tablet, and 61% use a smartphone, and it goes on and on. And then there's something like 40% of 12-year-olds or less have their own cell phone, and it's just all crazy numbers how these kids are using this technology. David, do we have any of the other charts on this?
I think we have 3 slides on this one.
Yeah, so this is just by age. This tells you, so it breaks it down under two. You can see, so 28% of 2 year olds use a tablet. Now that's mostly parents putting on like a cartoon or something for them, and it's what they're doing. They're just trying to pass have these kids babysit by this technologies, right? Same thing with the smartphone. It's when you're under two, the kid isn't doing it, the parents handing it to pass by the kid, right? While they're out at dinner or whatever they're doing. But it's really crazy. 12% of kids use a voice activated assistant. Do 12% of kids under two even talk? I mean, how does that work out? And 7% of kids under two use a smartwatch. Are you kidding me? What? I wasn't doing that stuff when I was under two. It was just hilarious, right? And in the article, this article, it tries to argue whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, and it's really hard to say, right? And so another one is 1 of 4 parents say their kid has their own smartphone, with half of 11 to 12-year-olds having their own smartphone, like their own smartphone, their own phone, their own account. That's just insane, right?
I I
And then
think this
that,
is
yeah.
I think this whole thing, I don't know, but the first thing I think about is we know we've got kind of a mental health crisis in this country. I wonder what the professionals are saying and how much this is tied to mental health, you know?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I think as kids get older and they get into the whole social media and gaming, I think that definitely leads to maybe some health issues, mental health issues. But I think the bigger issue, and I don't mean to, this is going to sound kind of judgy, David. I don't mean to be. This using these technologies for kids is you're just pacifying the kid. You know, you're putting them. You know, you're putting. It's like back in our age. You know, parents were hesitant to just put their kid in front of the TV and have it watch cartoons all day, but that was a way to, you know, control the kid. Well, today they do technologies for that, right? And instead of parenting the kid, like I'm gonna give you that, that fix you need, young 2-year old. Here, take my phone, or here, take my tablet, or 62% of kids under 2 watch YouTube. Here, watch these things on YouTube. 84% of kids under 4 do, and that's in lieu of parenting or quality time. Now it could be we have two income earning families, right? We have different demands, and so like I said, it's a little judging me to go, hey, Johnny, I'm tired today. I want to spend time with you. Here's my phone, right? And I think that has its own health challenges, right? You know what I mean? We don't have the same bonds and the same experiences as parents and children. It'd be good to get McKenna's thought on this too, because see, do you agree with that? Do you agree with that? Does that make any sense, David? That it's,
Yeah.
to me, it's a different health issue. We just don't have the parenting and bonds that we used to do because we're so happy to hand our kid our phone.
Yeah, I don't think I'd want to hear McKenna's take on this one. She and I, we love to. Actually, we don't. I enjoy good debate. McKenna does not. She doesn't like confrontation. So I'm not sure where she'd be at on this one.
She also has the need to win the argument. She speaks very definitively.
She's getting uncomfortable right now just us talking about it.
She's
All
like,
right,
"Can you pass me that microphone?"
right. Let's move on to the next one because I think we're running a little bit behind. But 40 jobs at risk from AI. We may need to zoom in on this graphic a little bit.
Yeah, you know what? It's all those things you would expect, but I would say, David, there's quite a few of the jobs in the top, say, 40 that are related to marketing or as such.
Hmm.
And if you look at the top one, interpreters and translators, well, that makes a lot of sense. The historians, I'm not exactly certain why.
That makes
But
sense.
sales reps for services makes sense. Writers and authors makes sense, right? Customer service representatives. Well, we've already been talking to a bot. Telephone operators, they don't even exist. So, but all these make sense. But it is surprising how many things that you could find underneath marketing. I think in the second, in like the top 40, there's writers, and graphic designers, stuff like that. What do you think?
Can we go back to that last one? One kind of really surprised me on that one was the CNC tool programmers. That's interesting, but makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah,
So
yeah.
basically,
Nothing. I mean,
I was watching a podcast the other day, and it was a guy that um, he started about 15 years ago writing about all the risks of AI and AI security, and he was projecting that I think he said in by 2030, 90, I forget if it was 90 or 99% of all jobs are going to be replaced with AI.
yeah. David, you and I were talking about this just kicking around the other day. I think a large amount of work we do today is going to be replaced by AI, but not necessarily the jobs, because the jobs will grow to include other things. You know what I mean? So just like with a real estate agent, just because now my consumer can do their own property search doesn't mean that I still can't be instrumental in the transaction. I just play a different role in the transaction. And the other thing is, while AI is going to eliminate a whole bunch of jobs, just like automobiles did for cars and for horse and buggies, but then it also generated a whole bunch of new jobs. we just don't know what those jobs are going to be in the future.
Yeah. Um, just watch Terminator and you'll know.
All right, I'll do that. Yeah.
J,
So
J,
I'm not a doomsdayer on the AI.
I think I kind of am. I don't know. I flip flop every day. Um, it's been a hot minute since I've watched Terminator, but I think I'm going to.
Yeah. That's a Terminator 1, Terminator 2, Terminator 3. I barely remember that movie, quite frankly.
I think it's kind of scary how I mean, obviously we're not there, and who knows if we'll go there. But I think it's kind of scary how that was. Gosh, how old is that movie? 30 years.
Yep, we have at least 30 years.
30 years. How likely it could go in that direction. Who knows if it will, but how likely it is that it could go in that direction. That was kind of predicted that long ago. But anyway,
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's weird, David, how long it's taken science fiction to become reality. There's just been such a restriction, especially in the United States, on new technologies, and so we're in a renaissance now where we're, as a society, embracing as much new stuff as possible. But if you think about it, the Jetsons were flying around in flying cars, cartoons 50 years ago, and it's literally taken us 50 years to deliver that concept, which we are right now. There are, flying cars or taxis, around the world that they're testing in some large scale. The things that we dreamed of 50 years ago, we could have, just like, with nuclear energy was discovered in something like 1938 or some time like that. And we used it for a while, for 20 years, and then quit using it for 50 years, or whatever. I'm not necessarily advocating for nuclear technology, although I would advocate for it. But there's so many things that we just stalled on that what we that it's this. I think it's exciting to be in this age now of innovation and progress.
yeah, yep. All right, let's wrap up with our last one: average U.S. car prices, which can be a major. Uh, it's crazy what they are right now, but a major hurdle when it comes to owning and buying a house.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, David, and I know we even hesitated about bringing it up again. Um, but the average price of a car now has gone over $50,000, and something like 70% of people pay $1,000 a month car payment. And as we talked about before, $1,000 a month takes away, $100,000 in, it was something more than I don't remember. If I remember, we created a formula for, or a calculator for it. As a matter of fact, I posted it online, and it was a substantial amount of buying power, eliminated from a home buyer. And so that's just another part of counseling, as we know, especially as you get into the first time home buyers and the financial literacy, the impact of buying a car on your ability to buy a house really has to be managed. And that's where we need to get to the consumer way ahead of their time to buy a house. It's like, I know, brought up Dave Savage several times, but, Dave Savage says the relationship with the consumer needs to start when they're 18. If you're a loan officer, you need to start the relationship at 18 so you can get in front of it and be a good advisor to them, to position them to be able to buy a house sooner, so then they have the benefits of home ownership and the compounding of, appreciation over time. But I'm a huge. I think you are too, David. I just want to keep telling everybody. I want to just yell from the rooftops: get to the consumer earlier. Because if let's say, like, all the back end things we used to do are going to be replaced by a machine. Processing a loan, application, all that stuff. Well, if we're going to reclaim that time, let's reinvest it by committing it earlier in the process, getting to the consumer earlier. Drafting a plan for them, a wealth plan that includes real estate, educating them sooner and sooner and sooner, so they understand the impact of going out there and buying a $50,000 car on a 7 year, with a 7 year loan that they're going to pay $700 a month for, and the cars, they're going to be upside down after day one, and they're going to regret that purchase. Like, let's get ahead of it and tell them what it means.
I think last time we talked about it was a month or two ago, and the average price was about 46,000. Why the jump so
That's
quickly?
right. Yeah, it's easily explained. It's because of EVs and the expiring tax credits.
Yeah.
So people rush to buy the EV so they get the tax credits. They're more expensive, and that's what caused us. It's a $6,000 bump on the average price of cars. That's why.
Yeah. That was the last day of September, I think, right? When the EV credit ran out.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah,
was I was
yeah.
this
And
close to
so
buying another Tesla.
Tesla, you're going to buy your truck?
Well, the EV credit wouldn't apply to the truck, but yes, yeah, I might get a lot of haters for this one, but my next vehicle will be the Tesla Cybertruck.
And they're gonna. I think you're going to get deals on those coming up.
Yeah, yeah, because they definitely have not been as popular as I think they hoped for.
Yeah, yeah. They have a giant overstock of them right now.
Hmm.
I read an article the other day. I think Musk is deploying all his excess Cybertrucks, all over the place. It was really interesting. I can't remember what. I didn't catch my attention, but it was how they have so many of them. He's letting people use them for free, which is deploying them as other companies as their like company vehicle. You
Interesting.
see where Tesla's coming up with a new discount car?
Yeah, they announced it, I think, on Tuesday.
Yeah,
They're
twenty nine
calling it the
thousand
standard.
nine hundred. Yeah, which is like the S, but without all the electronics and without all the bells and whistles. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. And would you want one? I mean, if you didn't get all this stuff, would you want it?
I mean, when I bought my Tesla, I bought the Tesla 3 and I bought the dual motor, which is the most expensive of the three different models. So I mean, if I was forced to take one, sure, but no, I like all the bells and whistles.
Yeah, yeah. You would want all the bells and whistles. I want to
Yeah.
see you drive that truck, even though I'm the hater.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's it, Ron.
All right. Well, we got it in, even given our technological challenges. That's great.
Yeah, and you'll be back in the country next week. I will be on the road, but we'll probably pre-record a show and release it on Thursday. But if you've joined us live, if you're watching this later, we appreciate you chiming in. Ron, with that, your wife tells us that we need to end every show with a cheers.
There you go. Cheers. Cheers to both of you guys. Good morning
Cheers.
from New Zealand, where the sun should come up in an hour.
All right. See you next week.
Thanks, everybody.